Yo, what is up, guys? It's Don from ASMR Cruise, and today I'm gonna hit you guys with a pretty heavy topic. But my hope is that sharing this story will help others who may be navigating something similar. Before I get into that, though, I just want to say I think the audio is kind of a little janky on the last upload, so sorry about that one. We're gonna try to crank that volume without it being too harsh this time around. Yeah, I just noticed it was like a little quiet, but hey, I'm still learning how to commentate more effectively and like project my voice and find my voice and stuff. So trust the process and stuff. It is what it is. But yeah, like I was saying, this is gonna be a pretty serious video, in some respects. But I'm still gonna try to have some fun with it and just try to have a positive takeaway. And my hope is that if anybody's going through something in their own life that's kind of adjacent to what I'm describing, this might help them relate and things like that. So, yeah, with all that said, today I want to talk about my bipolar and my experience as a bipolar person. Also, how I found out. Even though my diagnosis took place 4 years ago now, it still remains an ongoing challenge for me every single day. But this video is mostly going to be focused on how I was diagnosed because honestly, before I went to the hospital for treatment, I didn't really understand bipolar or mania. I felt super duper good, man. That's all I can really say. At the time, it didn't even occur to my younger self that I was violently spiraling into a very dangerous situation. I went to the hospital during the peak of my manic episode, but this sucker had been brewing for multiple months, potentially as far back as half a year of slowly losing myself to mania and the profound confusion that comes from it. How did this start? Honestly, I don't exactly know, but there are some key things about me from this time which I should point out. Firstly, I was obsessed with lifting. I'm talking like legitimately like 6 days a week, if not every single day of the week. If I had more than 2 consecutive off days, I felt like I was committing an actual travesty, truly bringing shame to my ever so precious gains, bro. Secondly, I had been mad depressed off and on since my early teenage era. I did have some confidence issues, and during high school, I was in a super intense relationship that really put strain on my psyche too. So you can maybe imagine, going off to college, starting to get fit and all that, I really had a spike in my confidence. And I felt like I was catching girls checking me out all the time. But I think the reality is that sometimes there really were people eyeing me up like that. But that said, as I became more and more manic later into 2021, the lines between real observations and erratic paranoia very much started to blur. Thirdly, I was smoking a lot of pot. And if you know about THC, marijuana, and bipolar, you know that that is strongly discouraged. And if you smoke weed when you live your life with this type of condition, it can be super risky. It's so challenging to regulate and remain at the right levels already. Then putting weed into the mix derails you in seconds if you smoke too much, too often, or consume a product that aggravates your whole balance. So yeah, guys, I went from depressed nerd chud to Jack Stoner in just a couple of short years. And I really think it was a perfect storm. For me, the weed fed into my paranoia, the gym fed into my ego, and these two combined created a true menace. If you've been seriously manic before, you probably know what I mean when I say I felt invincible, untouchable, God's gift to this earth. You know what I'm saying? I was having hallucinations, auditory as well as visual, seeing cryptic messages I could not explain coherently, yet I was immovably convinced were there. Everything had a hidden meaning in my world, and for a couple months as my manic symptoms intensified, I felt amazing. Probably the best I've felt in my entire life. That is what makes bipolar so dangerous. I felt strong. I felt respected. I felt like I was chosen for greatness during this time period. That's what sucks about bipolar, living day to day, is that happiness and mania are hard to distinguish at first. And if you let the good feeling take over, you may not notice how lost you become until it's too late. So yeah, I started getting mad paranoid in the gym, thinking I could hear voices even though my headphones were on, like noise canceling joints. Like, bro, you cannot hear conversations from across the large gym. But one time I damn near crashed out in my Planet Fitness, man. Crazy work. I remember this. I was playing that Whole Lotta Red song with Kid Cudi, and man, it got me so hyped up on the curl machine. I was banging my head to the song like aggressive as shit. I must have looked absolutely insane. I think my beanie I was wearing almost fell off. But yeah, this big guy walks by me and kind of looks at me, then starts a set at a nearby machine. He was probably valid to look or at least glance if I'm being real, because in retrospect, I probably looked a little bit off if I do say so myself. But yeah, I kept rocking out at the curl machine to my cardi, and later I moved on to a different lift. At the same time, the big guy moved too. That is all it took for me to get mad sus about it. Like, what the fuck, dude? How dare you work out in my proximity? 2 consecutive lifts in this very packed Planet Fitness. Bro. Then I go to cables, and oh boy, he posts up at the perpendicular cable like maybe a yard or something from me. Boy, I started talking so crazy. I was like, oh, you love me. You love me. I've dealt with people way harder than you. And he just looked at me. Didn't say a word. Probably just flabbergasted and confused. But I was so convinced he was butthurt I was mogging him, even though I'm pretty sure this guy could have kicked my ass. He was pretty big. Was talking shit enough for me though? Nope. Remember my beanie? This is insane. I unfolded it, stretched it over my eyes, and blindly banged out like 20 reps or something of some like fucking tricep extension. Something that doesn't even require eyesight to execute well. I did like the beanie thing just to like say to him, yeah, I can do this in my sleep, motherfucker. But holy guacamole, I was just being an unhinged meathead. Honestly, it's funny. I loved watching Derek, NPMD, and other lifting channels at this time. And More Plates, More Dates specifically covered a lot of bad steroid testimonials. I'll relate to these stories to a painfully close degree, but I never used gear myself. The only substance I did was weed, guys. No drinking even, no nicotine, definitely no anabolic steroids. But these stories always took place in a gym, so that's why I feel like my story feels so similar. I was so deregulated and confused at the time, I basically developed my own persisting version of roid rage. But yeah, that gym crash out was probably 2-ish weeks before I went to the hospital. My med provider had me involuntarily admitted, and I stayed for a week. I was too scared to ever go back to that gym, literally. I genuinely lost like all my gains. By some miracle, the same year as this hospitalization, which would have been in February, I got a summer internship and a subsequent full-time job. I bring this part up because I used to work as a mover part-time, so I was active at work as well as having a schedule to allow me to religiously lift. After my diagnosis though, I really fell out with working out in the gym culture. I genuinely have gained probably like 70 pounds since. Not like this ain't some poor me, but I'm just telling you how it is. Like, I sit for most of my work day and I'm so disenfranchised with gyms and that culture that I couldn't recover my fitness routine. But like I said, this isn't a pity party. Don't worry, guys. I've been lifting more at home with my dumbbells, and this summer I've been walking a lot too, getting my steps up. I'm not insanely cut like I used to be, but my current shape isn't too bad. You know, like I got some mass. It's not too bad. It's not all fat. I swear. Still want to try to trim up for sure, but I'm not going to pressure myself too much like to the extent that it would throw off the balance of other things in my life I care about maintaining. I didn't have shit going on back then when I was lifting all the time. I kind of no-life the gym, and I'm a lot busier now, so things change, man. You just got to adapt and find what's best for you. If I could go back and tell that version of myself one thing, it'd be that feeling unstoppable isn't always a sign you're finally becoming who you're meant to be. Sometimes it's a sign you need help before things get worse. But yeah, I don't know, guys. This is kind of a ramble, and there's so many individual facets that could become their own vids. But for now, I just wanted to broadly publicize my status as a bipolar person and talk about how I got to where I am now. It was super shocking for me and my family. Even now, the disturbances caused to my close relationships have had rippling effects that have lasted far beyond my initial treatment. But yeah, guys, I may talk more about bipolar and how I personally have experienced it in the future, but I think I'll wrap it up here. I want you guys to know that even though I have my ups and downs, I've slowly cultivated the skills I deserve. The skills to love myself and forgive myself. It's definitely a battle, but every year I get a bit older, a bit more experienced in life, and my priorities and perceptions shift alongside my developing maturity. Stay strong, guys. It's all love. Keep fighting the good fight if you're going through it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.